Margaret Mead had a famous quote, "It was never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." Moms Demand Action is that group. They started small, they're now in all 50 states and territories in Canada. And today, our speakers are Rosemary Nilles and Daniels. Deb is a lifelong Democrat, a retired Citrus County language arts teacher. She was very involved with her union in Citrus County. She is a volunteer co-leader for the Citrus chapter of the Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. She is presently the volunteer legislative liaison for the Citrus County Democratic Women's Club. She is last year's winner of the Democratic Women's Club of Florida's Legislative Liaison of the Year Award. Rosemary Nilles is a retired public school teacher, administrator, and consultant. Her passion is now volunteer community service. For the last 5.5 years, she has been a co-leader for Moms Demand Action. Rosemary is active with the League of Women Voters of Citrus County. She is also education chair and gun safety chair. She also serves as the league's education team and gun safety team. Please welcome Rosemary and Deb.
Good morning. Good morning. What a lovely introduction. We're so happy to be here. We know we're talking about a very sensitive topic today, guns, although among Democrats we may have some kindred spirits. People do have strong opinions and beliefs about guns and gun violence and what to do about. So today we are going to be talking about gun violence, suicide. We will be using terms that are hard to say, hard to hear. But in order to understand the issues, we have to confront them head on, use words that are clear. Some of you in this group probably have personally experienced gun violence, or it may have impacted a loved one. We call folks like you survivors. We know that living through these experiences is devastating. Hearing about them can be very difficult, traumatic. So if you feel you need to step away during this session to care for yourself, please do. We have taken the liberty today of using several cartoons, even while understanding and admitting that there's no humor in gun violence. We do not intend to offend. And the data mostly comes from Everytown for gun safety, but any errors today are my own. Okay, so we're going to cover a lot of ground today, so we're not going to go deep, we're going to go broad, but we feel it's kind of important because of what's been happening. So first we're going to talk about moms, who we are, what we do, and then we'll talk at the center is the whole issue of gun violence, a very American issue. We'll talk about the results of unsecured weapons. We'll talk about stand your ground, permitless carry, and assault weapons. We will give you some federal and state updates, and we are going to give you an action item that we want you to do before you leave. About moms, it's a 10-year-old movement of volunteers. It's really important. We are nonpartisan. Started by Shannon Watts in 2012 after the Sandy Hook massacre. She was a mother of 5 who said, "I've had enough." Now we're 10 million strong. We call ourselves Mothers and Others because we're comprised of people from all walks of life, all political positions, gun owners and non-gun owners, parents, grandparents, professionals, laborers. Again, men, women, we are Mothers and Others, and we're a very inclusive group. We believe in diversity, equity, and equality. So you won't find us hiding around. We have one goal, to create an America free from gun violence while respecting the Second Amendment rights. We're pro-gun safety, anti-gun violence. We do not refer to ourselves as a gun control group. That's a term I don't want you to use. It's not gun control. It's gun violence prevention is what we do. So we fight for public safety measures. We advocate for legislators and policymakers. Our structure, we're part of Every Town for Gun Safety. That's our parent organization. Every Town Research is a clearinghouse for up-to-date, trustworthy information. That's where you go when you want to find out up-to-date data as well as solutions. We also have Students Demand Action, getting stronger and bigger, the Every Town Survivor Network. A few things about our work. It's a strategic approach, holistic, so we're not a one-shot fix-all, okay? We use evidence-based actions. We combat gun violence at the local, state, federal level, and we work to change the culture about how we talk about guns and what we do with them. So we do advocate safe storage as well, secure storage. Okay, real quick about we do legislative action. We support gun laws. You'll see us in Tallahassee and state capitals all over the country. We're known as the ladies in the red shirts, and some of them don't like us. We also partner with community violence intervention programs. They're called CVIPs. They've been around a lot longer than we have, and we work very closely with them. We work to establish gun sense candidates, and the last couple of elections, we've been very pleased to have gun sense candidates run and win. We also train volunteers and supporters to learn how to be a gun sense candidate. We call it take your seat, because if they're not going to do what we need them to do, then they need to give up their seats and let someone else do it. We have the Be Smart program. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while, since 2015. The main thing we also do is create awareness, things like our Wear Orange Day. I see that there are signs around here. We have a Disarm Hate program to make sure that people who commit hate crimes against various populations are not allowed to continue to own their guns and have them. We have a program of red flag awareness, extreme risk protection orders. It's called One Thing You Can Do. We have the Every Town Survivor Network, and there's probably more. Do want to let you know, you probably already know this, gun violence is a solely American problem. The impact of gun violence is horrible. 120 deaths a day, that has risen. 7 to 9 of those are kids, depending on how you define a kid. Is it 17, 18, 19? 7 to 8 of those are from Florida. About 40,000 a year. Some estimates are higher. For the general population, we have almost 60% suicide, almost 40% homicide, and then some unintentional, undetermined. You'll see the black here. But remember this, that every time there's a death or an injury, gun injuries are almost double those of gun deaths. Every time there's an injury, there's trauma, ripple effects. Family members are never, ever going to be the same again. So it's not just a physical issue, it's trauma. Okay, you can see them. Okay. Just take a quick glance. You don't need to look at the names of the countries. This is the developed world, and this is the United States at the bottom. 26 times worse. Okay, who's at the most risk? Certainly, gun violence impacts our black and brown Americans. Much of it takes place in segregated areas, in cities with lower incomes. Black Americans are the majority of gun homicide victims. They're 10 times more likely than white Americans to be victimized by guns. And black males of any age, 15 times more likely to be a victim of gun homicide. So being a black male is very risky. It's also women. In an average month, 52 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner. Black women are twice as likely to be killed by an intimate partner as white women. Hate crimes are on the rise. Most target religious minorities, communities of color, and LGBTQ plus people. The LGBT community is very much at risk, especially trans victims and especially trans Black women. Nearly 3/4 of the hate crimes against trans people were trans Black women. But in the United States, there's a lot of areas where even people convicted of a hate crime can still own, buy, possess, and carry weapons. So that's why we talk about disarming hate. Let's talk just a little bit about kids. Okay, guns are the #1 cause of death for kids in the United States. In 2020, guns surpassed cars. But in Florida, guns are still #2, cars are still #1, and I don't know if that says something about our driving. Yeah. But think for every injury, though, of all the kids that are traumatized. So we won't be talking heavy solutions, but we will tell you, make some suggestions and refer you to every town. Okay, this is what I want you to know. On the left is adults. Adults are mostly suicide, somewhere close to 2/3 suicide, close to 40% homicide. It's just the opposite for kids. I'm sorry there. You can hold it.
We can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Is that better? Okay. So sorry. I want you to notice that gun deaths, the kids are the victims. About 1/3 of the gun deaths for kids are suicides. The rest are homicides. Very different of adults versus kids. Okay, so we're talking about our first issue, which is the consequences of unsecured guns. Some of those consequences are unintentional shootings, teen suicide, school shootings, and then, of course, the crime that comes from stolen guns that could have been secured. So just to briefly go through each of those very quickly. The unintentional shootings, we have 300 a year, approximately 1 a day. We don't call them accidents. I don't want you to call them accidents. There's no such thing as an accident when a child finds a gun. They mostly happen at home. The teenagers, 14 to 17 are the biggest group, and the little ones under 5 are the next biggest group. The older ones shoot each other. The little ones shoot themselves. The worst times for it are holidays, especially December, November, and weekends. So wouldn't that point you to some solutions, knowing that? Suicide, about 700 a year, teen suicide, and that number has been on the rise. Again, almost 2 a day. Most of the kids get their guns from their own home or that of a friend or relative, and it's mostly boys. Suicide, an attempted suicide, is highly effective, and so there's no turning back when there's a gun involved, as there might be with other types. It's young males, and again, secure storage could help. It might not stop all of them. Many, many multi-layered strategies, such as tip lines for when you know of something and more research. Okay, school shootings. Again, where do they get the guns? When a young person brings a gun to school, they got it from home or their friend's home, or maybe they stole it from someone's car, more than likely. More and more incidents. Last year we had 273. We're, based on this year's rate, we're only in May, we're projected to have 400 if things continue. Most kids who shoot at a school have some connection, and there's a very strong connection with domestic violence. They've often shot someone else first in their phone, or in their home. So the news, as always with the mass shooting, is going to focus on the injuries and the deaths. But think about the trauma of having to hide wherever, go on lockdown. We had the security officer from Citrus County School District at a League of Women Voters meeting on Tuesday, and he said, once there's a lockdown, doesn't matter what time of day, the kids are done. They simply cannot learn. They're shook up, and so are the adults for that matter. Again, multi-layered strategies are what's needed, and that would be a topic for another day. Okay, once again, it's the minorities who suffer the brunt of our lax gun laws. Black kids and teens, 14 times more likely than white peers to die by gun violence. For young black males, 15 to 24, that's the leading cause of death. They'll tell you if you interview them, they don't think they're going to make it to 21. It's almost a fatalistic attitude that they have. Hispanic teens are also at risk 3 times more likely than white peers. Again, stolen guns are a big issue. Last year in Tampa alone, 200 guns were stolen from unlocked cars, and that's only what's reported. Not every state, not every area has to report stolen guns. But when you think about the 3 teens who went on a shooting spree in Marion County last month, where did they get the guns? Same thing, we just had 2 young men involved in a shooting in Citrus County this past week. Where did they get them? So this is not a quick fix, but it's certainly a part of the fix. There's no one thing. But the other thing, when people say they keep their guns under their pillow or accessible because of crime, somebody might break in, let me read this, because they're twice as likely, the guns themselves are twice as likely to be stolen from a home as used to stop a crime. So let that one sink in. Very rarely does a crime stop or a crime happen in our homes. But yes, guns can be stolen. And as far as cars, that's one of the worst issues. Florida law doesn't even require that if it's in the glove box, loaded, it doesn't matter. As long as it's in the glove box, that is considered secure. So those are some of the issues that we've gone through quickly. Okay, Be Smart. So we do have a program. It comes from every town. It's a non-political program, so a lot of the time it's a standalone. So if people don't like the idea of moms demanding action for gun sense, we can introduce Be Smart without even mentioning moms. The material does not have moms or every town on it, if that makes a difference. Be Smart is a 20-minute presentation. It is non-political. We can all agree that our kids need to be safe, and we can all agree that keeping our kids safe is an adult responsibility. They deserve to feel safe. So Be Smart is a website. You can find it. It's on your little handout. I suggest if you'd like to know more about that, go there. There are all sorts of materials, downloads, little memes you can put. So it's not just a presentation. But the main point is store guns unlocked, unloaded, locked, and separated from ammunition. The S in Be Smart stands for secure. Secure your guns in the way I just described. M is model appropriate behavior with guns. Of course we teach our children not to touch them, but we can't rely on them. We've got to make sure that the guns are out of reach because kids are just too impulsive. Ask. We teach parents and caregivers to ask before their children visit another home. Do you have guns? And if so, are they secure? And we teach them how to navigate a conversation beyond that. Recognize, that's the R, recognize that risk of teen suicide, that impulsiveness, and then tell others about Be Smart. And just one more thing I'd like to say about this. There are many, many affordable options that give you quick access to your gun if you want it. We have the technology to have the biometric locks that open with the touch of a fingertip, or better yet, a smart gun that only the owner can use because it's set to use their own fingerprints. This, unfortunately, is what we often get. We're not getting the policy and action. We're not getting the courage. So our kids are suffering. And 90% of schools do have active shooter drills. So think about the trauma that has added to their lives in an already stressful life. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Deb, who's going to address some of the other issues around gun violence.
Universal background checks and red flag laws. Of course, we have that from the Sandy, from the Parkland legislation, but we need to strengthen it. And Congress needs to, again, we need to strengthen all of those. And that's what we talk about, sensible gun laws. We need to strengthen those laws. All right, so let's talk about the gun laws. So I got a tracking notice this morning that Governor DeSantis did sign this one yesterday. And this was Sales of Firearms and Ammunition Act. It did pass. It was signed yesterday. And what this is credit card companies were beginning to code purchases of guns and ammo. And they were doing this to thwart gun buyers. I read this morning after the signing that previous Florida representative said Pulse Shooter bought $26,000 worth of guns, ammo, and armor in the 12 days before he shot up Pulse. So, what your legislators are saying is they do not want ammo buyers or gun buyers to be watched. So this law prevents, and it will fine financial institutions, credit card companies that identify gun store purchases. And this passed. And you wonder, are they looking out for us? No. Oh, this is the big. This is the big one. Of course, we all are aware of this. Permitless carry. We've had concealed carry in Florida. That is that they can carry a gun on their person out in public if they go through the steps. And those steps were training, background check, fingerprinting. And it was training with a firing a loaded gun. I mean, pretty intense training. This bill eliminates that. Totally eliminates that step, that second safety guard that was put in place. So now anybody can carry a gun in the state of Florida, in public, at Publix, anywhere. And they do not have to have that second piece, permitless carry. Now, I watched this go through, and I'm telling you right now that even the gun lobbyists were upset because they didn't do open carry. Now, open carry is where you can put it on your hip, you can wear it right out in the open. We still, with the permitless carry, it's still concealed. So sometimes people are asked that question. And it did have some school guardian issues in it. They put stuff in, school safety stuff in, with the permitless carry to make it look better, which they often do. And here's the data. Handgun homicide rates rose by 11% in states that weakened their gun permitting regulations. States that implemented permitless carry have 13 to 15% increase in both gun violence and police shootings. It's not even good for our men in blue and women in blue. Police shootings increased by 13% in 10 states that had passed permitless carry laws from 2014 to 2020. So, I got two-handed here. All right, so yeah, this is what you're going to hear, and we're going to give you this myth information so you know how to talk to your neighbor. The myth is, and they will tell you this, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is to make sure he never gets one. Myth, requiring a permit to carry a loaded concealed handgun in public violates the U.S. Constitution. No federal court has held that requiring a permit to carry a loaded concealed handgun in public violates the U.S. Constitution. So they can say it over and over again, but it has nothing to do with the Constitution. And again, we do not call it constitutional carry. It's a euphemism. We call it permitless carry. We call it what it is, carrying a gun without a permit. So words work. And down there, Florida revoked or suspended 9,900 and, what does that say?
It's almost 10,000.
Almost 10,000, thank you. They denied 32,618 applications. So that is not in service anymore. There is no, this does not happen. There's no denying anyone, anything. That's been lifted. I'd like to understand, we're going to talk about stand your ground laws. I'm going to turn my page here, hold on. Florida has enacted a particularly egregious stand your ground law, which allows people to use deadly force without retreating in public, even in situations where a person is not in imminent danger of death or serious bodily harm. Florida's statute also makes it harder to properly investigate cases where stand your ground defense is being used by lifting law enforcement's ability to arrest someone who claims to have acted in self-defense. So they are not even allowed to arrest these people when they shoot somebody in public. All right, so what is it? Well, I think I just went through it. Under traditional self-defense law, people had a duty to retreat. So they encourage people to shoot first. And we're going to call this something different too. When you're talking to your neighbor or your community or your organizations, let's change it to shoot first. It's a shoot first law. It's not a stand your ground law. It's a shoot first law. Let's change that culture. Let's talk it and say what it is. Shoot first laws are disproportionately impact people of color 5 times in states with shoot first laws. Homicides in which white shooters kill black victims are deemed justifiable 5 times more frequently than when the situation is reversed. So we've had the stand your ground law adopted in 2005, and it became a blueprint for other states. 2017, we worsened it by putting the burden of the state to prove that a shooter did not act in self-defense, which is totally backwards of the law, and therefore not entitled to stand your ground immunities. Florida's current law states that a person has no duty to retreat. So here was the effect. 32% increase in monthly firearm homicide rates, and disproportionately impact on people of color. And in Florida, SYG cases involving minority victims are only half as likely to lead to convictions compared to cases involving white victims. Yeah, is your ground worth it? Let's talk about assault weapons. All right, the myth here. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Fact is, people with guns kill people. And they do it more efficiently than people without guns. They do. Myth, assault weapons are not deadlier than other firearms. Powerful. A round is 4 times more powerful, destructive, inflicts greater damage to the human body, faster, fires rounds more rapidly. I think there's 30 in a magazine. You have to pull, it's semi-automatic, so you have to pull the trigger 30 times, but you don't run out of ammo. And efficient. Used with high-capacity magazines, they allow a shooter to fire many rounds in a shorter period of time. And of course, we're coming out of Allen, Texas. And if you've heard the details of that, it's devastating and horrifying and should not be allowed. We have to do something. Often used in mass shootings, school shootings. Research shows that prohibition on assault weapons can prevent mass shooting fatalities and active shooter events. 10 states currently have assault weapons bans. So, the most of the deadliest mass shootings in our country involve the use of an assault weapon, including Las Vegas, Nevada, Orlando, Florida, Parkland, Florida, Aurora, Colorado, etc., and now Allen, Texas. In 1994, the U.S. passed the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, which included an assault weapons ban. There was a sunset provision on that ban that would automatically expire after 10 years, unless it was renewed. After 10 years, the political climate had changed, and the efforts to reinstate that ban since have been unsuccessful. Advocates for gun central legislation celebrated last June after Biden signed the bipartisan gun control bill in the wake of shooting at the elementary school that left 21 people, 19 students, and 2 teachers dead in Uvalde, Texas. But as the country continues to experience a slew of mass shootings, Biden has pleaded with Congress to do more, including banning assault weapons. And yet, here we are. Oh yeah. Let's bring back, for Mother's Day, let's do this. When mothers don't want cards and flowers anymore. We want this assault ban to come back. Researchers estimate that if we still had a federal assault ban, we'd see 70% fewer deaths from mass shootings, 25% of mass shootings that involve an assault weapon account for 25% of mass shootings deaths, and 76% of injuries. And Dr. Rosemary.
Thanks, Deb. Great job. Well, we are going to give you let's have a little bit of good news. When people say, what did Biden ever do? Do you ever have that said to you? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, here's one. We have a new ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Director last summer. Finally, that was a long time coming that Biden appointed. Okay, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. This is an important one, and I believe it is on your little handout. Signed into law by President Biden last summer in June, almost a year. So what it does is it makes a much deeper, more thorough background check for buyers under 21. That they have to check with state law enforcement, local law enforcement, and courts before that sale proceeds. So that's very important, especially in light of the fact that our Florida House a couple of weeks ago voted to allow long guns to be sold again to kids under 21. Y'all remember Parkland? And they raised the age for long guns for kids to 21. Our own representatives voted to lower it. Ralph Masulo was a sponsor. Unforgivable. But at any rate, so that's a help there. Oh, by the way, it didn't pass. Didn't pass. The Florida Senate didn't take it up, but don't think you won't be seeing it again next year. Supporting state red flag laws. Florida already has red flag laws, extreme risk protection orders is the full name. We've had them since 2018. They are working. We know that there's data on it. Our local sheriffs are using it. We'd like to see it strengthened so that families could petition to have a gun removed from a person who's a danger to themselves or others, only temporarily. Okay, so they offered the states money. Guess which state has not accepted the money? I can't make this up. They have not. When someone I knew made contact, they were sent from office to office, and the last piece of information I've heard is that the office said it's a lot of paperwork, we haven't been able to do it. Think about that. Okay, disarming domestic abusers. You may have heard over the years that domestic abuse laws applied only to married partners. Now dating partners, because let's face it, a lot of people don't get married, but they have a partner, an intimate partner, and now federal law has been expanded to include them. Clarifying who is a gun dealer, who must run a background check. It's not going to close every loophole, believe me, but it's a start, because in Florida, we can still get a gun anywhere we want. So think about permitless carry, think about weak background checks, and then think about stand your ground. Are we heading for the perfect storm or what? Cracking down on gun trafficking. Federal laws against interstate gun trafficking, it's only as good as those who implement it, of course. These are some of the best things. Funding community violence intervention. Remember I said CVIP at the beginning that Moms is involved in? There's now some money for evidence-based practices in communities, and I don't know if Florida has accepted it, but let's hope so. Investing in mental health services, to expand community mental health services, because what mental health looks like in the villages may not be what it looks like in downtown Orlando or in Levy County or the Panhandle. So it has to reflect the community. And there's now federal investment, and then school safety funding. Again, there's plenty of evidence about what works in schools, so this will fund it. Okay, another piece of good news, because we don't want to leave you with your head under your arm when you leave us here. Okay, Maxwell Frost, he's our own Florida guy. An Office of Gun Violence Prevention, and that would have an advisory board, collect data, make policy recommendations, which every town likes because every town does it too, and educate people, because there is so much misinformation. And that reminds me, Deb, you were going to talk about misinformation. Bring it on.
Oh, geez. I want to do mention too that Matt Gates, another Florida representative in the U.S. Congress. I get it. He has introduced this week a new federal bill that would ban. Let me see what it says.
Doesn't he want to make red flag, or I'm sorry, stand your ground federal?
He wants to make stand your ground federal. That's right. So he wants to make our federal law that, because we said there's only 30 states that have stand your ground laws, and he wants to make it a federal law where every state would have these stand your ground laws, where no one has a duty to retreat. It's so important. Yeah, so often, and Sue brought it up, she wants to know what can we do. So have the conversation. The opponents, your opposition, that MAGA person that lives next door to you, don't engage. Do not waste your time or your energy. Your neighbors who disagree, but maybe are more scared about disinformation that they've been given, find common ground. We all want our communities to be healthy and safe. Will your neighbor agree? Yes. We all want students to feel safe in school and have opportunities for learning. Yes. I'm also concerned about violence and crime. That's why I support common sense efforts like background checks. Can you say that to that neighbor? Our kids deserve to feel safe at school. Will your neighbor agree? Yes. So find that common ground and have those discussions. And the allies, those people that are on your side, make it urgent, make it local, and recruit. And have moms come talk to you.
Thanks, Deb. Okay. All right, we're almost finished. Wrap it up. Whoa. We have to enjoy our... Okay, well, let's just do this. Okay, we believe that our kids are our most important ally. Let's face it, most of us are senior citizens, and we're working our tails off, and I know that you are too, but we also want to get our kids involved. They're the ones that are living through it, witnessing their friends being shot at, especially if they're African American. Think of the trauma that these kids are carrying. And if you're in a minority, you're carrying triple the trauma because you're witnessing more and more death and injuries every day. So our kids are our hope. Okay, as Deb said, we are sick and tired, we are fed up. We don't want all the stuff that mothers get on Mother's Day. We want a ban on assault weapons. So here is your action. Oh, sorry, yeah. It's not like this is going to be a new law. It was allowed to expire in 2004. It had a term limit on it. Bring it back. Okay, here's your job. Daniel Webster, your guy, right? Yeah. He used to be ours. But we got it. We're in no better shape. I still get Webster's emails. Okay. I want you this weekend to make a call before you go to bed tonight. See those numbers? I'd call this Washington, D.C. Get out your phone right now, put his number in it, and your job tonight is to say, my name is so-and-so, I live in so-and-so in the Villages, I'm calling because I've had enough. We're tired of children being maimed and as they're shot. They're not just shot, they're maimed, and their parents are being maimed. We've had enough. We don't need weapons of war on our street. Thank you very much. 1 minute. That's all you need to do. And you can call every day. I've called mine twice now, and tonight's another night. I'm going to make another call. Less than a minute. Okay. On this, the gun safety advocates, you have a handout about this. This is your Wear Orange. Wear Orange is the day national groups, not just moms, all sorts of groups, our community groups are doing partnerships to wear orange, to call attention to the trauma of gun violence and to say it's time to do something. So this is one in the Villages. Usually it's the first Saturday in June. We do have one in Citrus County for those of you who've been to see us right at our courthouse on Saturday, June 3rd at 11 o'clock. But this is your one. It's going to be next week. That's okay. Wear orange is fine. Do it every day. Bring attention to this problem. We did bring some Be Smart little cards for anybody who wants them. But more than that, if you are interested in learning more about this, there is a sign-in sheet. If you want to get our emails from Citrus County, give us your email. It's a private email group, so it doesn't go out to the world. It's me and Deb. But if you'd like to get information from Moms Demand Action in Florida, put your cell phone number in and you'll start getting texts. Again, there's a lot of information on there. We know we couldn't get very deep into this, but we wanted you to be aware of how all these things work together. Guns left laying around, unloaded, or unlocked and loaded. Permitless carry in a state that already has lousy background checks, and stand your ground. And now assault weapons that are just being sold like crazy. So we want you to act. We want you to get involved. You don't have to join moms if you want, but speak out, call your representatives, talk to your neighbors, do what you can, and we can support you any ways that you would like. Thank you very much.
Would you ladies like to take some questions?
Oh, sure, I forgot about that. Anybody have questions? Yes.
How about Florida constitutional amendment to implement some of this? Seems like all of these are very popular.
You know what? What's your name?
My name's Aaron.
Darren?
Aaron?
Eric, okay. Eric had a great question. Why can't we have a Florida constitutional amendment? Do you know that? It's funny. When I was calling our legislators this state session, I said the exact same thing. I said, if we want permitless carry, why not put it to the people? Why not make it a constitutional amendment that we can all vote up or vote down? Because guess what? You're exactly right. Most of us don't want this. And they do that. The sheriffs don't want it. The big ones that get elected, they said they wanted it because they're under the thumb of the guy in control. But the ordinary sheriffs, police officers on the beat, they don't want it. Most of us don't want it. And I understand even Fox News viewers are against assault weapons, would like to see a ban. So you're right, Eric. There is a lot of movement within the people, but we've been stymied. We've had our arms held behind our back by this supermajority who is under the thumb of the governor. I would love to see that happen. I will tell you this, it's very hard. Florida's made it harder and harder and harder to get something on the, as a constitutional amendment. There is a petition going around. You've probably all signed it, the right to clean water. If you haven't, make sure you do it. It's very hard. The numbers have to be high. There's probably a petition. Okay, there's a new petition going around. I don't know if it's out on the street yet, and that is for abortion rights, a constitutional amendment to say that we have a right to make our own decisions. We don't want the governor in our bedroom. Okay, good. Okay, yeah, I know it just came out this week. So, would putting guns to a constitutional amendment be a good idea? Yes. Will it happen? I don't know if they pass the law to make it harder to get a constitutional amendment. Every year, they up the ante because they don't want us messing with it. Other questions? Well, there's somebody over here. Okay.
On the assault weapons, is it not, I don't mean to sound macabre, but is it not time for another Emmett Till moment?
That's what
Yeah, we need to do something, you know. I have a friend who literally had her first panic attack when she heard about some of the damage to the people in Texas. Another question here?
On the permitless carry, are there any federal buildings that you are not allowed to carry a gun into? Like if the governor is standing up there?
Oh, yes.
All of them.
You can't carry a gun into the Florida Capitol.
Yeah.
You can't, no, you can't carry guns into federal or state offices.
What about schools?
Schools are gun-free zones. What Moms has talked about doing, and other gun violence prevention groups, would be encouraging merchants to post on their doorways and entrances, no guns permitted inside the place of business. And we want to see more of that. We're hoping that works. I also have, yeah.
Do you have a sign?
Do you have yes, are guns permitted in this building?
Yes.
Okay.
You better start thinking about it because we've got permitless carry now.
Yeah. Remember, 42,000 people were denied permits to conceal carry by the state of Florida last year. So that system was working. And 10,000 of them were denied it because they had a concealed carry, they had it revoked because they did a crime. What is going to happen? So we know that every year, another 50,000 people who shouldn't have any gun are now carrying in our grocery stores, post office, parks. Go ahead, next one.
I don't have a question, I just wanted everyone, I don't know if everybody was aware, but the NRA convention that they had recently, they banned guns from coming into their convention.
And DeSantis has bodyguards everywhere, and now he's hidden his travel. And the travel of, by law now, they passed a law, the travel of his high officials, President of the Senate, Speaker of the House, Lieutenant Governor. No one will know their itinerary. He just had a secret meeting in Hernando County. It's like no one knew. Only certain people were invited. Okay, another question?
Just a suggestion, this afternoon I'm going to donate to Representative Frost.
Yeah, good one.
And then I'm going to update you on a name. It's not DeSantis, it's Death DeSantis.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you've heard the name, Blaise Ingolia. He's now, because of redistricting, he's now the state senator for Citrus. He's a close buddy of DeSantis. Watch that name, because I think he's going to run for governor next. Oh, he's yours too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Ladies, I want to thank you so much for coming. We have a 50-50 drawing, and we would like you to take this. For our volunteer testimony today, we brought you an amazing young woman that we met at the Sumter County Gala. Her name is Amani Lindsay. She's active as a volunteer in her school. She's about to graduate, and someday she will be the governor of Florida.
Like this? Yeah. Well, good morning again. I'm Nilles, and I come from Lakewood High School. And I'd like to give a moment of your time. We have seen over time the changes in the atmosphere that surrounds us in this world. An impending dark cloud steady over the horizon. And that same dark cloud, which is a reminder of the dark past we fought so hard to confront. And yet it comes with a vengeance. It is only in the hands of the future generation that we will fight, not hide, but fight against the spirit of the past that is working on its insurgents in this modern world today. Rights and liberties being robbed, human decency is out of the question. When can we confidently say, America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, with liberty and justice for all? I ask you follow-up questions to really ask you, what makes America truly great? I can read to you the Declaration of Independence. I could analyze the Pledge of Allegiance for you. I can even sing the national anthem if I wanted to. But how can we make that define America? I can confidently say that I am like no one else but myself. I'm no better than my neighbor. I'm no better than the people I see on the street. I'm no better than anyone in front of me today. However, what I do see in front of me in the streets, in my homes, everywhere, is human beings. A life that is worth cherishing, regardless of where you come from, where your parents come from, who you pray to, or who you identify as. Because even though there are killings, massacres in this country each and every day, who holds the gun, who's also at the end of the gun, is still a human. Although my generation, Gen Z, is full of mischief and TikTok dances and just looking to get rich somehow. But can we honestly see a future that so many people have fought and died for be stripped away from us? My generation is a lot of things, but one thing I can confidently say is that we are diverse, we are aware, we are open-minded, and most of all, we are mostly resilient. We are able to see the reflection of the past within each other to show compassion and empathy. We are able to speak out against and moral injustice, and we know that our actions have consequences, but we have pride in them. Generation Z is the future. We have fought through great challenges. We have fought through the internal ideological wars within ourselves and in this country. And we are now ready to face this future that is covered by a dark, looming cloud. I cannot stand for it, knowing that myself and many others wish to see a clear blue sky over America, who wish to see a future worth fighting for, to bring light into this world once again. I am not here to make promises, but I know for sure that this generation will make the change to bring that light into this country. Thank you.
It's Dennis's turn.
How hard is this? So I always like to start with good news. Is this good news? We collectively, individually, must work to get this man reelected. A few days before this happened, next slide, our president got quoted in the New York Times. And he did a story about whether Biden was too old. And of course he said, heck no, I'm a young whippersnapper at 72. He should run. And then this happened. Next one. Fox and Friends emailed her and said, we'd like you to be on a panel tomorrow about seniors and Biden. Fox and Friends, really? Next slide. She had the reply. Thank you very much. You're not going to take my 5 minutes, the applause. Next slide. So then CNN held a Trump rally disguised as a town hall. And it was terrible, allegedly, because I didn't watch it. I heard about it later. But I did find this one thing interesting. Victoria's E. Jean Carroll may be suing him again for defamation. Next slide, please. And the beat goes on. Next slide, please. So in addition to all the terrible laws the legislature passed in this last session, they passed a law that said DeSantis could run for president and still be governor, that he does not have to reveal who meets with him in the governor's office, and that Wandering Ron doesn't have to give any itineraries as to where in the hell he's going to be at any given time. As a person who lived on public records and believes that public information is public, this just boils me up, and I hope it outrages you as well. Next slide, please. Our favorite state rep, Anna Skamani, had an answer, and we got a twofer out of it, in a tweet that said, DeSantis is trying to out-Trump Trump. To do that, you have to be as extreme as possible. I would argue, unless you've been indicted and have led an insurrection, you can't out-Trump Trump. Oh, she's great. And she'll be here in July as our speaker. Next slide, please. This is Nikki Fried at the rally in Tampa last Sunday, the day after the State Executive Committee and Central Committee met in Tampa to do some work. She had one message above all to everybody there, and in both circumstances. I'm going to repeat it to you now. Ron DeSantis will never be the President of the United States. Do you agree? Yes. Do you agree? Yes. Do you agree? Yes. Next slide, please.
I'm Allison Firth. I'm with Lake County Democrats. And first of all, I'm so excited. Speaking of Maxwell Frost, he's our speaker tonight at our gala. A lot of you are coming. Thank you. We sold out with 16 days left, and we have 220 tickets sold, of which only 200 were allowed to be in the venue. So we're making room. We won't have a violation with the exit areas, but we're very excited, and Maxwell Frost is our speaker. So we are very excited, and we're piggybacking off of the great Sumter County event, and so thank you very much. And then I'd also like to give a kudos to Chris and the team on Neighborhood Links. We're having our third event on Tuesday at Lady Lake Library. So we have about 40 people so far that have, within the Lake County area, more to come. But we are very excited that we're kicking off Neighborhood Links. And so very excited about that, and just wanted to thank everybody for their support, because we're grassroots here. So thank you all, and hope to see you tonight at the gala.